Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into something I think a lot of us wrestle with sometimes.
Definitely.
That nagging feeling,
Hmm.
Like you're faking it, successes are just luck, and eventually everyone's going to figure it out.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
Yeah. Surprisingly common.
exactly. And we want to explore a really practical way to start, well, dealing with those feelings
Yeah.
using journaling.
And specifically, how a journal designed for this kind of reflection, like the Listallian ones we've looked at before, can be a genuinely powerful tool.
Right. So let's start there. What is imposter syndrome, formally speaking?
Yeah.
Our sources dig into that.
Okay, so fundamentally, it's this psychological thing where you just can't internalize your accomplishments.
Yeah.
Despite external proof like good grades, job promotions, positive feedback.
I'd still feel like a fraud.
Exactly.
Right.
You feel like a fraud and you live with this persistent fear of being exposed. It's not just, oh, a little humility, it's deeper.
A pattern, really.
Yeah, it is. A pattern often rooted in how we attribute things. We tend to blame ourselves for failures. I messed that up. But when things go well,
It was luck, where someone helped me, where
Right.
they just didn't notice the flaws.
precisely, you externalize the success. And journaling is powerful here because it forces you, gently, to document the actual skills and effort you put in. It directly challenges that bias.
Okay, so it's that self-doubt overshadowing real achievements. The sources also mention anxiety and perfectionism being tied into this.
Oh, absolutely. Huge drivers. The anxiety fuels this need to be perfect, to work twice as hard, to make sure there are no mistakes that could possibly expose you.
Which sounds exhausting.
It is exhausting, and it reinforces the idea that any success is due to this massive, unsustainable effort or just luck, not underlying competence.
And you mentioned Dr. Cockley's work earlier. She's a big name in studying this, right? Does it affect everyone the same way?
Well, her research and others suggests it doesn't. It seems to disproportionately affect women, people from minority backgrounds, and folks in really high-pressure, high-performance fields.
Like what kind of fields?
Think demanding academic programs, so lots of college students report feeling this way. Healthcare professionals obviously carry huge responsibility, and anyone in a really competitive job market.
Yeah, you can see how those environments might, amplify any underlying self-doubt if you feel different or the stakes feel incredibly high.
It creates fertile ground for those feelings to take root and grow. And it's not just about feeling bad, is it? The sources point to real consequences.
Right. What kind of impacts are we talking about?
Well, the chronic stress and anxiety that often come with it can definitely contribute to things like depression, lower self-esteem. That constant fear of failure isn't just internal noise.
It affects how you act.
Totally.
Yeah.
It can hinder your job performance because maybe you don't speak up with ideas. It can strain relationships if you're constantly seeking reassurance or projecting insecurity. And it really limits personal growth. If you're always playing it safe, afraid to fail, you're less likely to volunteer for that challenging project or, apply for that promotion. You miss opportunities because the fear holds you back.
Okay, so it's clearly a significant issue. Let's pivot to solutions then. Journaling. We know it's helpful generally, but how specifically does it help fight this particular feeling of being a fraud?
It works almost like a form of behavioral therapy, really. It provides a structured, private space to confront those negative thoughts head on.
Instead of just letting them swirl around in your head.
Exactly. You get them down on paper. It helps you identify the negative self-perceptions fueling the imposter feelings, and then actively work on building a more realistic, healthier sense of your own worth.
So putting pen to paper, how does that actually work? What's the mechanism that starts to chip away at feeling like an imposter, especially using a structured journal?
Good question. One key way, drawing from our sources, is challenging negative thoughts directly. You write down the imposter thought, I only got that client because I was lucky. Then, right below it, you actively write down evidence against it. Okay, but I spent 10 hours researching their needs. My proposal addressed all their points. They praised my specific insights in the meeting. You counter the feeling with facts.
Like building a case for yourself.
Pretty much. Another big benefit is pattern recognition. When you consistently journal about when these feelings pop up, what triggers them, how intense they are, how you react,
You start seeing the connections.
you do. You notice, oh, it always gets worse before a big presentation. Or when I get critical feedback, even if it's constructive, my first thought is, I'm incompetent. Recognizing those patterns is the first step to changing the response.
That visibility must be powerful. And the third thing you mentioned was celebrating successes, which sounds easy, but maybe isn't when you feel like a fraud.
It's crucial. Because the imposter tendency is to minimize or explain away wins. So journaling provides that dedicated space to intentionally record them. Today, I successfully debugged that tricky code. Or my team lead complimented my report.
Even small things.
Especially the small things. They add up. Over time, this practice helps shift your focus from constant self-criticism to actually acknowledging your capabilities and seeing your growth.
And this is where having a good journal, like a Listallian, really helps, right?
Yeah.
Those features aren't just cosmetic.
Not at all. They're functional tools for this process.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the numbered pages that creates a chronology, a history. When doubt hits hard, you can literally flip back through pages 10, 25, 50 and see concrete examples of past successes, past challenges overcome.
It makes the evidence undeniable, in a way.
Exactly. And the table of contents. You can use that to track specific projects or maybe periods where you felt particularly strong imposter feelings and see how you navigated them, what you wrote then. It aids reflection.
I like that. And the quality. Does that matter?
I think it does, actually. Using something that feels good, the smooth paper, the nice cover, it makes the act of journaling feel less like a chore and more like a deliberate act of self-care. It elevates the practice.
And the back pocket.
Oh, yeah, that's brilliant for this. You can tuck in actual physical evidence, a printout of positive feedback, a note someone wrote you, maybe little affirmation cards, tangible proof against the inner critic.
It's like building your own evidence locker against the imposter voice. I actually have a friend, Mark, a software engineer.
Yeah.
Super talented guy.
Okay.
But after every single successful project, he'd be convinced, absolutely convinced, the next one would be the disaster that exposed him. He'd obsess over one tiny bug, ignoring weeks of brilliant work.
Classic imposter pattern.
Totally. So he started using a Listallian journal. One of the first things he did, very simply, was list 3 things he accomplished each day. Just 3.
Even if they felt small.
Yeah, especially them. At first, he said it felt kind of forced, unnatural. But as he filled those numbered pages, page after page, just seeing the volume of his contributions, it started to shift something.
The sheer accumulation of evidence.
Exactly. And he used the table of contents to track reflections on specific coding challenges or projects. He could go back and see, okay, I felt like a fraud then too, but look what I actually did. And he kept printouts of positive client comments in that back pocket, little anchors.
That's a fantastic example of how that consistent documentation, especially being able to easily revisit it, really reframes things. It makes past success feel less like a fluke and more like a pattern.
Yeah, it takes it from fuzzy memory to concrete fact you can point to. Okay, so Mark's story shows it in action. What specific techniques do our sources recommend for people listening who want to try this?
Right, actionable stuff. We touched on 1, daily reflection on achievements. End of the day, write down 3 things, big or small, that you accomplished. Doesn't have to be earth-shattering.
So acknowledge them.
Just get them down. Another key one is actively writing counterarguments to negative thoughts. Catch that you're not qualified thought and deliberately list reasons why you are. Skills, experience, past successes.
Be your own defense attorney.
In a way, yes. Guided prompts are also super helpful. Instead of just staring at a blank page, use questions like, what skills did I use well today? Or, what was a challenge I handled effectively?
That gives you a starting point.
It directs the reflection productively. Then there's tracking triggers and responses, noticing when the feelings hit and how you react emotionally.
Yeah.
Again, identifying patterns to manage them better.
And breaking down big goals.
Yes, that's huge. If a big task feels overwhelming and triggers inadequacy, break it down in your journal into the smallest possible steps. Then just focus on the next step and note when you complete it.
3 to momentum.
It creates a sense of accomplishment and control, which directly fights that feeling of being overwhelmed and fraudulent. I remember a family member starting a big new leadership role.
Yeah.
Huge wave of, I can't do this, just massive self-doubt. But they used their journal to break down the role's demands, specific skills needed, knowledge gaps. Then they logged their progress learning each bit.
Like a roadmap.
Exactly. Each entry on a numbered page was like a milestone passed. It didn't erase the doubt overnight, but it built this visual record of competence that slowly chipped away at the I'm not qualified feeling.
That makes so much sense. Turning this huge, scary thing into manageable pieces you can track. And this isn't just based on anecdotes like Mark or your family member, right? There's actual research supporting journaling's benefits.
Oh, absolutely. That's important. There's a solid body of scientific work looking at expressive writing and journaling.
What does it show?
Consistently, studies link it to lower stress and anxiety. Getting those swirling negative thoughts out of your head and onto paper is genuinely therapeutic for many people.
It externalizes them.
Precisely. It also boosts self-awareness. Recognizing your thought patterns, including the self-doubting ones, is the first step toward developing coping strategies. You can't change what you don't see.
Okay, lower stress, better awareness. What else?
Research also suggests links to increased job satisfaction and confidence over time. As you use the journal to track growth and successes, your perception of your own competence can actually improve.
You start believing the evidence you're collecting.
You do. And finally, it aids emotional regulation. It's a healthy outlet, a way to process stressful events or difficult feelings constructively instead of letting them fester or, lead to unhealthy coping mechanisms.
And all of those benefits, less stress, more awareness, more confidence, better emotional handling, they all directly combat the core issues of imposter syndrome, don't they?
They really do. They target the anxiety, the negative thought loops, the difficulty internalizing success. It all ties together.
So wrapping this up, it sounds like tackling imposter syndrome isn't like flipping a switch. It's more of a journey.
Definitely a journey. It's about ongoing self-awareness, learning self-acceptance, accepting that you don't have to be perfect, and actively, intentionally building confidence.
Which involves recognizing what you actually achieve, pushing back against those negative voices.
And setting realistic expectations. Understanding that everyone makes mistakes, everyone feels unsure sometimes. That's part of being human, not proof of being a fraud.
And using a tool like a Listalian journal, with its structure and quality, can make that journey feel more manageable, more intentional.
I really think so. It turns the abstract idea of reflect more into a concrete practice. The numbered pages, the TOC, the pocket, they facilitate the specific techniques we've talked about. It makes journaling a potentially more rewarding and ultimately effective habit for building that resilience.
It's an investment in yourself, really.
It absolutely is. And the core message here for anyone listening who feels this way is crucial. You are not a fraud.
Say it again.
You are not a fraud. You have capabilities, you have talents, you have worth. Just really think about how deliberately reflecting on your experiences, the good, the bad, the challenging, could start to shift your own perspective. It can foster a much stronger and, frankly, more accurate sense of self-belief.
Well said. Okay, here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Think about one time recently, just one instance, where you dismissed something you did well as just luck. What concrete piece of evidence, what specific action or skill you employed could you have written down in a journal right then to counter that feeling?